Welcome to another episode of The Blank Canvas, a project brought to you by Plinko Solutions focused on AI and accessibility, building business infrastructure in real time. So today's a cool one. I am actively, right now, call it the equivalent of revving my engine, running two AI quote-unquote agents at the same time, while I'll be ideating on the third one here in live time. So the order in which we're going to go through this is really cool. The first one is focused on a notebook project called The World Has All the Answers. And what this one is really cool, I'll show you guys what it does. So from here, what it is essentially a marketing repurposing tool, right? That allows you to use your phone to scan any handwritten notebook that you have or any resources, anything you have that can fit in a Google Drive, takes it and creates a database that your language model can talk to. Very simple, very simple build. There's a few ways of approaching it with no code that I've done in the past, and that just typically involves creating an N8N voice agent, or not even a voice agent, just an N8N, just like literal agent modules, one module, connect your language model to it, and then basically create a chat endpoint. And that's it. And in between, you plug in a Google Drive, you plug in wherever. Pretty simple to do. Problem is, if you're having a multi-user experience, meaning you're having many people use that thing versus just yourself, you need something a little bit better, which then has taken us into the realm of splitting this into code, specifically building the front end, which is how it looks visually, and then the back end, which is how does the database manage itself? How does it basically, logically make sense of that? And that kind of logical approach is what we're going to dive into today, and basically showing you how one of the AI agents I have is doing that in live time. The second one, bringing you guys into it, is a really cool one as well. So second one is a questionnaire focused primarily on segmenting and casting this wide net to onboard and bring people in, basically get them interested in the business. Now, I will say, this is something for the last few weeks I've built in a few different iterations, but every time I would get to a good progress point, something inside me was like, there needs to be more into it, regardless of just like the visuals and like kind of piece. Like, I'm mostly interested in how can I engage people and really carry them through an experience. So recently, shout out to Alex Hormozi, the legend himself, released this good old 7-hour audiobook experience of his recent book, Money Models. And what it does is it breaks down essentially all these different offers and how he basically composes them to, distribute and pass on the business. This isn't all encompassing. I feel like there's so much more in terms of the table of content that he did not tap into here. But regardless, because we have access to it, we're basically marrying that, as you can see all over here in this long thread, to the questionnaire, right? So it needed something extra. And I basically wanted to fully capture it. So the way I did that is I ran a deep research, basically bringing up all the financials and logic behind the market itself and the whole AI automation world and what we do as a full business here. And combining that to the transcript and saying, hey, using this whiteboard tool, I want to make sense of this and basically extrapolate. And I went ahead and prepared a questionnaire. But I noticed that Quen, despite its fantastic storage capabilities, one of the reasons you see me using it is because ChatGPT, I am pushing the edge of memory. This one is one of the larger ones. So typically a language model, you're looking 23 in terms of its bytes. I'm sure it doesn't stand for bytes, but regardless, billions of like input. That's kind of what it goes for in terms of token usage. For each individual message, if you can imagine it, right? Your output that the language model feeds you is privy to a certain length, right? So if you can just don't even look at the text for a second, take this into account and then see how that kind of levels, right? I spent 0.23 seconds scrolling there. Whereas with this boy, this absolute unit, I had one piece where I'm like, hey, how can I take the top and integrate it to my existing piece, right? Take it here. Now if I count, I'm scrolling. Of course, different queries, different responses, but this is still pretty much in alignment. And it's still going. Nearly, I guess, double, if not like triple the output. So because of that, I have the power now to take these concepts that are wider and kind of fit it back into this narrow piece. So when I did that and I saw that, hey, okay, I have 39 prompts left, I was like, how do I basically do this? And previously, when I had asked it to do that, I maximized the amount of prompts because I didn't ask, what to do. That was my last month experience. I maximized it, and it remembered that I kept trying to narrow. I basically try to tighten the pipe as much as I can. And with browser agents, if you do that, you'll find a lot of your prompts are stuck in this cycle of saying, hey, it's okay, keep going. And when I did that, I ended up burning more prompts than I was looking to save. So how do I counter against that? In terms of prompt chains, which we've discussed earlier on the channel, it's how do we basically create those little sections, those blocks, and build them as if they were bricks? How do we take it and package it so that it functions as an asset, a PDF, or some kind of one-shot that we can use? That's one piece, right? So think about it. We're asking the assembly line to squeeze in and summarize and squeeze something within this brick. The other alternative to using intelligent systems is taking that brick and expanding it bigger. So if I want to create a house out of that or something that I can stand upon and make use out of, I start to look towards expansion. And when I do that, it's shot for 24 prompts, right? But now bringing it back is that kind of process with pipe. I'm seeing now a plan that I can follow. So what I'm going to do is, understanding the kind of bigger picture that's happening here. It's being able to first plan the thing, build the back end, as well as the sort of way it speaks to the back end. The quizzes, the actual functional size of the quizzes, and how it measures, it calculates, and scores, that's a component. The UI, which is then the front end of how this thing actually shows, and the actual functionality of going from a dynamic questionnaire that incorporates these offers that stack upon each other to create attraction. So we're landing on a 6th prompt chain. I mentioned this video will be me running 1 and 2 and then ideating on a 3rd. You've got the 2 now. We're going to go ahead, start them with the launch, and you'll see me just clicking through to kind of understand the speed of what's happening here. So Bolt.new is running here. GPT is running here. So let's see what's happening with Bolt.new right now. As a browser agent, it's looking to basically create this. And I've been trying to follow this process of essentially, talking to it, building the plan, and then actually executing it here, right? So for whatever reason, I ran into an issue trying to actually execute it, meaning something was missing in the plan, and it's going to go ahead and troubleshoot. So when these language models troubleshoot, here's an important key. I'm not so much using my brain. I'm kind of just clicking and clicking over and over again. When this language model gets stuck, you'll notice I'm just copy, pasting. And part of that process is now having it do that. So I can feed this into Qs.ai, which is this whiteboard tool, and just kind of let Bolt.new do its thing until I maximize its monthly or daily tokens. I'm on a free coupon in this. My daily is not too bad, and it resets basically coming soon. So because of that, I am looking to just basically squeeze it. So this is kind of the brain work, letting these run, and then also ideating on that 3rd. So let me talk to you guys about that 3rd while I just kind of click through this and showcase. So let's go ahead and fix this. So what I'm doing here is I hit code and I got continue. Every time this finishes, I'm just going to have it do that over and over. While that's running, maximizing the time, almost gamifying, if you will, I'm following what it's asking of me. So it says, hey, run this in the terminal to basically list and understand, right? So Bolt.new kind of works like that. It's this sort of collaborative tool for building, whereas with browser agents, they actually handle the thing for you. So there's a bit more technicality. This one normally is no code, but it's just giving me the step-by-step. And I'm basically asking it to do the same thing as the other one, right? It's just button mashing. At the end of the day, I'm sitting here and my mind is just like pressing the X and, the X and triangle, the X and circle. If you're a gamer, you understand what I'm talking about. I'm just entering combos, right? So in the same way when I'm playing a game and I'm entering cheat codes, all I'm doing is really just following forth on that. This is a kind of cheat code playing. I'm just inputting the same thing over and over and over. So at this point here, still not moving, change it to discuss. Say, what do you need? Right? don't worry, we'll get to that third AI agent. I'm just showing you guys kind of how this runs versus me just spitballing. So, provide the output, showcasing it, letting this run, do what it needs to do. Keep in mind, the more detail, the better. So I'm giving it space, right? The only reason I'm doing this inside of GPT versus Quen is because it has context on basically everything I'm doing. Quen is great because it has the window for expansion, but this one, it's great. I can also showcase kind of like what the process is of feeding this through that. The problem is though, I don't want to disrupt the flow. So I'm going to go ahead and get the 6 out of this, kind of see what it does there. At the end of the day, like these agent modes and using these digital employees, this is what it feels like. It's just actually going in and clicking through. So from here, I pretty much just ask it to continue, just like the other one. And like I said, that's the thought process. Read it, see that it's not throwing up like the absolute red flags of red flags. The game isn't broken. From here, it's just kind of clicking and playing. Keep in mind, you can do this for hours on end. I like to do 25-minute timers to basically stop myself from going past that and following through with it, right? This kind of helps too because as engineers and architects, you can get lost in planning. You can get lost in trying to build this, the dock for the ship. You know what I mean? Like you can get lost in not getting in the water and just swimming upstream to find, maybe they have boats up there and the resources that you need to build something are actually upstream. And often I find too, like as I'll just kind of run the back end to bring the big camera up to show you. So as we move within the back end, we're also looking at like, what are the ways that we can achieve what we're doing? And the more we get into a place where we're so fixated on the leadership, the strategic, the actual not overbearing, the layer up of creation that you have to kind of ideate upon. When you are at the management level, you're looking at how can I delegate and use my tools and what I have access to in order to create certain actualization, right? So if I have developers I can tap shoulders of, I would ask them for their input and kind of make sense of this. Try to see like what is needed and, ask it to do so, right? Ask it to say, literally, build what is needed and just have it go through that kind of iteration. You'll notice in the middle, it's actually executing all these things. And if I'm following through with like being the engineer, being the implement, right? The implementation aspect of it, right? There's leadership, management, and implementation. The more we're actually visualizing at the top layer, the more we have longevity. The more we ideate on that middle level, the more we see leverage and output. And the more we ideate on the implementation level, we see efficiencies, we see possibility. And I can't tell you how much culturally we're pushed to believe different degrees of importance across them, right? The best leaders are the ones that are handling things with implementation, the ones that are in there doing the thing, right? You can be extrapolated, right? And it doesn't mean in there doing the thing all the time. Like you can spend some time as well in management and see what that's like. And it's a great way to develop leverage and understand efficiencies and how they play across different teams better, right? That's business infrastructure 101. And when you get closer to that, you get to see what does this look like in these different departments and how does it relate to these different personalities, right? And being able to see that is something that allows you to basically say, okay, this is all it takes to implement. What I'm doing right now, I could outsource, truthfully. But in order for me to lead at any great capacity, I also need to be building with cutting edge material and ideating on these things, right? I'm not a full stack, crazy developer by any means. In fact, there are many people that will do what I'm doing better. They'll be able to understand what's happening. My approach is through the intent of surface area. I know that I have better strengths ideating up on the insights in terms of what can be built and architecting that both at the leadership level, management level, and implementation level gives me great joy, because then I'm able to cultivate speed and transformation within a business. And that change story is what most people look towards these tools for. So, all that being said, what was the third agent, right? What was that all about? So while these are running, let me introduce a concept that I've been writing a lot on. And I want to do this in a good, responsible way. So when it comes to content, just to shift gears for a bit, right? So that was all building with business. When it comes to outreach and being able to actually help people, something really cool happens. When I speak about surface area, a large part of what that means is basically brand awareness and actual touch points that I can make with a message, right? So in order to really do that with media and capturing that, and really, this is what I mean with responsible, I'm thinking about when I distribute and when I speak to people, how well can I convey value in helping them, right? And to do so without being trite requires me to be very thoughtful about that integration. Part of that thoughtfulness is creating feedback loops and connecting to people. So if I'm going to do that, a lot needs to go embedded in that. And when I say a lot, I'm speaking about enterprise design. I'm speaking about story, speaking about execution and practicality, right? I, on an ongoing basis with my business, give myself a 2-hour maximum of daily limits to actually build content and record and create in terms of writing and distribution and that whole side when it comes to broadcasting. 2 hours maximum. Outside of that, a lot of my strategy within my calendar is around prospecting directly or actually cultivating implementation. So you'll see I actually have times where I'm like managing, manager versus maker mode. I'm actually talking to people and strategizing how to improve what I'm doing, especially in terms of fulfillment, in terms of development, in terms of actually doing the business. But then I also have time where I'm actually building, creating, doing. And going forward into September is an exciting time because I get to implement a new way of executing, a new way of coordinating my time. I spent a large time focusing on production efficiency and creating like pre-planned shot sequences and B-roll templates and all this kind of fun jazz. And there's been times where I've explored doing that and it's taken up too much time. There starts to be a bit of bleed in terms of pour over onto other clients, other stuff that I'm working and building on. So in order to optimize that and do better, I have to streamline my setup, meaning most of my actual quality here is done pre-production. I know what I'm going to talk about. I know how to create a thread and then close it within conversation. That's something I need to apply better looking in hindsight, because if I'm outputting every day, or at least as frequently as I can within a 2-hour time frame, then I'm able to actually really deliver on, time saving and value exchange and being able to have these sort of arcs and markers that actually help people. Part of doing that as well is focusing on a calendar that distributes monthly themes that are aligned with these kind of narrative arcs and what I want to basically create for people. That requires basically reducing the amount. Like I mentioned, I record pretty much daily, but I'm only distributing. For me, it's been pretty much every day. Going forward, I want to switch that and if I'm distributing twice a week, how does the quality of those things go up? And how can we absorb that into planning time, right? So instead of spending 2 hours just recording, 2 hours planning. And then doing that in a way that funnels basically towards the questionnaire, connects what I'm doing project-wise into more hands, and creates anticipation for actually helping people, right? Doing that through exclusivity and seeing how I can basically increase implementation into businesses is something I'm doing live, experimenting and learning. And it's great. I'm having a good time. From there too, I'm also able to see how can I develop key performance, communicate that to people and say, hey, I'm having a good time because things are working. The digital employees and the AI kind of projects I'm working on, they're actually impacting real-time industry things. Being able to build digital employees is a new kind of muscle that I'm exploring, Before I start advertising it, I'm also practicing it and doing it. Hence the first half of this. So because of that, I'm able to build up a good library that I can then convey and communicate outwards. Basically, long story short, thinking bigger and not thinking as small as I have been. There's been a lot of ways for production to be batched and for things to be handled in terms of distribution, and for me to schedule my time to focus on the community and building that. In terms of growth projections, like setting goals for myself that I can actively achieve and service is a big piece, right? So you'll see me kind of ideating on this over and over here. So for here, you get to see my kind of goals. I create these kind of like key performance metrics for myself. 2 hours a day. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, calling it now. We'll see it in 30 days. 500 users over the span of month by month. That's given that I've hit in my distribution of 500K views across wherever I want to go. I'm saying this with 13 views right now per video. The engagement rate, I'm looking for 12%, right? Increasing a target per these individual arcs. So instead of doing, just 4 weeks recording, I have twice a week, and each one is planned to build on top of each other to then cultivate a common user experience and standardize that a little bit more in terms of creatively and quality wise. I can speak about these brief moments as I record as I'm improving on this, but I think a large part of doing it in public is showcasing that. So for me, I see my hope, my mission is to do a 3.5% conversion on those monthly views month after month. And that involves me creating 120 pieces of content, media that I can distribute across these different platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, and also increase my automation catalog. And you see these kind of carnival tactics. It's funny stuff. Again, ideating, basically seeing how can I do this authentically, creating a 16-beat framework following a 6-month calendar, and doing it in a way that drives the narrative towards improvement and helping people, right? And getting over this idea that knowledge and impact and change that can happen for you is innately overwhelming. And having a resource that shows you what you can do with that should be empowering. So a large part of what that means in terms of a 16-beat framework and building that 6-month calendar is looking, okay, if these stories are captured in 16 beats, right? How can we create a 1-to-4 connection across the way, or even a 4-to-4, an 8-to-8, have that kind of larger picture. So twice a month, major events. To do that, in order to actually have any of these distribution goals, any of these big missions hit, I need to do in terms of the 120 pieces, in order to repurpose it short form wise, create distribution material, meaning use other cameras, make this a little bit more engaging, interesting, try to capture more and create those narratives and write that out. So that's me on the drawing board. And, as we're talking, as these things run, the games are running on the other end. I have those 2 AI agents running, right? I should note, as these are running in the back end, right? They're just continuing to go. I just keep hitting them a continue and they just keep running. I'm running this on about 16 gigs of RAM, normal gaming laptop. Piece of it too is like, I'm not doing this locally. So each one is being done on a cloud of its own, power of middleware. And I'm paying for token usage. So because of that, these ideation sessions, playing the game essentially, implementation should cost you nothing, next to nothing anyways. In order to ideate on the bigger picture, that requires you to spend the time, play the game at a different difficulty, as they would say, and explore what more and better can look like. All right. So with that one, we'll see you guys in the next one.